まずは上手や。
Welcome, Ladles and Jelly Spoons, to Kohigh Mathy's YouTube channel, coming at you live via videotape. This is our monthly 20th anniversary retrospective review, where we look at a video game that is turning 20 years old in the month of March in the year of our Lord 2023. This month we're looking at the third game in the Tenchu series of stealth action games, Tenchu Wrath of Heaven.
Hey, isn't that the girl you took home from the club? No.
Hey, Tiger.
Ever wish you could become invisible? Welcome to Tenchu, Wrath of Heaven. Become invisible. Silence your enemies with 30 authentic ninja weapons on 26 stealth missions. Take on your friends in 2 vicious multiplayer modes, because sometimes your friends need to be silenced. Tenchu, Wrath of Heaven. Rated M for mature.
Tenchu Wrath of Heaven is a stealth action video game developed by Capcom's subsidiary development studios K2 LLC and published by Activision. It was released for the PlayStation 2 in 2003 and later for the Xbox under the title Tenchu Return from Darkness, and to the PlayStation Portable in 2009 under the title Tenchu 3 Portable. Tenchu Wrath of Heaven is the third installment in the Tenchu series, which focuses on the exploits of ninja assassins Rikimaru and Ayame. The game features both characters as playable protagonists, each with their own unique abilities and storylines. Players must use stealth and cunning to infiltrate enemy strongholds and complete various assassination and espionage missions. The game offers a variety of different weapons and gadgets to aid in these tasks, including shurikens, smoke bombs and grappling hooks. Tenchu Wrath of Heaven is known for its challenging gameplay and emphasis on stealth, as well as its detailed level design and intricate storytelling. It received generally positive reviews from critics upon its release and is still considered a classic in the stealth action genre today.
Now, I know what you're going to ask, and sadly, no. Tenchu Wrath of Heaven, nor any of the Tenchu series appear in book 1001 Video Games You Must Play Before You Die by our good friend, I don't know it, Tony Mott.
So, Mr. B can have another month off.
Well, yes, but also no. You see, we here at the Orbital Broadcast Bunker,
Britain's first and only airborne subterranean studio, don't you know?
well, quite. We think that Mr. B should play the Tenchu series exactly because it isn't in the book.
Tenchu Wrath of Heaven was developed by K2 LLC, a Japanese game development studio with links to Capcom. The game was published by Activision in North America and Europe and FromSoftware in Japan. The development team for Tenchu Wrath of Heaven consisted of many of the same members who had worked on previous games in the series. The team's goal was to create a game that remained true to the core gameplay mechanics of the Tenchu franchise whilst also introducing new features and improvements to the series. The game featured a revamped combat system which allowed for more fluid and dynamic battles, as well as a new stealth kill system which made it easier to take out enemies quietly. The game's development was not without its challenges, however. The team faced several setbacks and delays during the development process, which ultimately resulted in a longer development cycle than was originally planned. Despite these difficulties, the game was ultimately released to critical acclaim and has since become a beloved classic in the stealth action genre. In 2004, Tenchu Return from Darkness was released for the original Xbox. The port included graphical improvements, 2 new single-player missions, extra special moves, and the ability to go online with a versus and co-op multiplayer modes. Tenchu Wrath of Heaven is a third-person stealth action game that emphasises stealth, assassination and espionage. The game is set in feudal Sengoku-era Japan and features 3 playable characters, Rikimaru, Ayame and Tenchu.
Now, if you want to play as Tenchu, much like in Tenchu 2, Birth of the Stealth Assassins, first you must complete the game with both Ayame and Ricky Maru.
Now, did you know that the game's title in Japan is Tenchu 3 San Setsu no Sho, which roughly translates to Tenchu 3, the three books of the mountain and the river.
The gameplay revolves around completing a variety of missions, each with specific objectives, such as assassinating a target, stealing an item, or rescuing a captive. The player must use stealth to avoid detection by patrolling guards, traps, and other hazards. The game features a variety of tools and weapons to aid in this, including shurikens, smoke bombs, and grappling hooks. Each character has their own unique set of weapons and abilities, making them suited for different playstyles. In addition to stealth, the game features a combat system that allows players to engage in sword fights with enemy guards. The combat system is more refined than in previous Tenchu games, with the ability to perform combo attacks, counter-attacks, and critical hits. However, the game still heavily emphasises stealth and rewards players for avoiding combat altogether. One of the signature features of the game is the ability to perform stealth kills. By sneaking up behind unsuspecting enemies, the player can then execute a silent assassination that eliminates the enemy without alerting nearby guards. The game also features a ranking system that rates players' performance on each mission based on factors such as completion time, number of kills, and stealthiness.
Now, did you know that there were a two-part prequel manga published in the April and May 2003 issues of Monthly Shoujin Gangan? Now, the two chapters were titled Tenchu San Zenpen, Tenchu 3 Part 1, and Tenchu San Koen, Tenchu 3 Part 2, respectively. The first chapter also included a colour poster. These mangas were never collated into Tekben format and are therefore quite rare.
The music in Tenchu Wrath of Heaven was composed by Noriyuki Asakura, a Japanese composer and musician who has worked heavily in the gaming industry. The game's soundtrack features a mix of traditional Japanese instruments and modern electronic music, creating an atmospheric and immersive sound that complements the game's feudal Japanese setting. The music is heavily influenced by traditional Japanese music, including the use of instruments such as shakihachi, the bamboo flute, koto, the zither, and the taiko drum. The game also features a main theme song titled Sadame. The song is performed by Japanese singer Yui Masure and plays during the game's ending credits. Sadame features lyrics in Japanese and has a haunting atmospheric quality that is similar to the game's overall tone. The song has become quite popular amongst fans of the series and is often cited as a highlight of the game's soundtrack. Features a talented cast of voice actors who bring the game's characters to life. Ricky Maru is voiced by David Witterberg, an American voice actor who has provided voices for other video games such as Final Fantasy X and Naruto Ultimate Ninja. Lending her voice to Ayame is the incredibly talented Jennifer Hale, a Canadian-American voice actress who has provided voices for numerous video games and animated shows, including Mass Effect, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and Metal Gear Solid. Tenchu is voiced by Paul Nakauchi, an American voice actor and actor who has provided voices for other video games such as Overwatch and Metal Gear Solid 4. Lord Miho, one of the game's main antagonists, is voiced by Kenji Fujiwara, a Japanese voice actor who has also provided voices for many animes and video games including Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy 15. Onikage, or Onikage, the other game's main antagonist, is voiced by Isshin Chiba, a Japanese voice actor who has provided voices for many anime and video games including Naruto and Resident Evil. Other notable voice actors in the game include Jameson Price, who voices several characters including the mysterious Echi Goya, and Grey Delisi, who voices the female ninjas in the game. The voice acting in Tenchu Wrath of Heaven is considered to be of high quality for the time. This is a 2003 game after all, but it really does bring the game's characters and story to life.
Now then, it feels only right that we should give a little shout out to friend of the channel, George from Australia, who, as his channel title would suggest, has been gaming his whole life. He did his very own little retrospective review of Tenchu, Wrath of Heaven, some time ago. Now it's pretty damn good. There's a link in the description below, go give it a watch. and tell him that we sent you.
Please do go and check out George's video and his channel. He clearly has an awful lot of love for this game, as do many retro video game fans. This is a game that has 100% stood the test of time, and I can 100% recommend picking up and playing today if you like a little bit of stealth action set in Sengoku era Japan. Now, a standard playthrough will see you playing for about 8 hours or so, but if you want to see all that this game has to offer, and why would you not, you'll be looking at a good 16 hours worth of game time. And honestly, if you enjoyed the game as much as I did, then you might just play for that long and not even realise it. Tenchu Wrath of Heaven is exactly what I wanted from the next game in the Tenchu series on the new hardware that was the PlayStation 2. Now, it's true, the Xbox edition is really the definitive version of the game. It adds so much and is even the base framework for the ported PSP version of Tenchu Wrath of Heaven. The graphical leap forward is obviously the first thing that you notice, from Tenchu 1 and 2 with its very stylised and blocky looking characters to this much more sleek yet still very stylised looking improvements. Controls pretty much stay true from Tenchu 1 and 2, but the presentation and the game's menus just made it feel so next gen at the time. Tenchu Wrath of Heaven received generally positive reviews from critics upon its release. Overall, the game was praised for its engaging stealth-based gameplay, improved graphics and level design over its predecessors. The game stayed true to the series' ninja themes and aesthetic. However, some critics felt that the game could be overly difficult and that the camera angles could be frustrating. Despite this criticism, however, Tenchu Wrath of Heaven remains a well-regarded entry in the series and is often cited as one of the best ninja video games ever made.
何を企んでいる？答えよ！殺さないでくれ！ゴーダ城に内通者を忍ばせた！
But before we go, as always, here are the answers to last month's quiz. Now, it was complete the song titles. Now, the first one was I'm going to sit right down and. Well, of course, the answer was write myself a letter. Now, there were several other suggestions that were not only unseemly, but physically impossible. And if you don't believe me, Mr. B, well, you sit yourself right down and try it. Now, lastly, we had I Dream Of. Well, Mr. NH of Hina, I've looked up what you apparently dream of in Freud, and it appears that you have a morbid fear of being brutally assaulted by a giant rabbit covered in jam. Now, don't worry, Mr. NH, it's very common. I mean, Pat White Muffin has that dream all the time.
Oh, him, the great airy fool.
The real answer to the song title was I Dream of Genie in the Light Brown Hair, which I should have thought was a great improvement on I Dream of Being Brutally Assaulted by a Giant Rabbit Covered in Jam. None of which brings us to the end of this week's episode. So if you've made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. If by any chance you're not subscribed to the channel, then please consider doing so. It is free after all, and you can always just unsubscribe later. Please do like this video, share this video, or just leave us a comment down below. Anything you can do to help us grow our little spot on the internet is appreciated. Now, before we go though, I'll leave you with this. If you suffer from kleptomania, can you take something for it? Cheerio, see you Friday.